On PM Express tonight, the big jobs and debt debate. It's a conversation around creating jobs whilst trying to manage your debt. How do you do the two at the same time? The government position is that they will create 1 million jobs, but while at the same time not borrowing for the host of initiatives that they plan to implement to create the jobs. We know that just last week, the finance minister was in parliament and he announced this 1 million jobs initiative, right? And this is targeted at the youth fundamentally. So how did he explain that they will achieve these jobs? And that will tell you a bit of the vehicles that they plan to deploy. In essence, these jobs, they believe, will be found in SMEs, right? They also want to support new ventures and also stimulate innovation and startups. They believe all these will create a lot of jobs for the youth, right? But if you're stimulating, you're going to spend money. If you're supporting new ventures, you will spend money. If you are investing in SMEs, you will spend money. Now, there were other initiatives all geared towards, in essence, creating these 1 million jobs. For example, the creation of what they call the youth bank. The youth bank that's going to have support, going to, sort of lay out support for the youth. One of the key initiatives in the youth bank is this arrangement with private banks to give loans to young people without collateral and at very extremely low interest rates. But the banks will want something out of that, trust me. And so what is government going to give in exchange for this deal with the banks? Again, that may cost government something. Again, the aim is also help financing youth-led startup businesses. So you can go, if you're a youth-led startup business, you could go to the youth bank under that structure and get some funding for what you plan to do. Now, remember that at the base of all this is what government has called the Obatampa. This is a 100 billion initiative. Government is funding 30 billion of that. Private sector is funding 70 billion of that. That 30 billion that government is funding is a lot of money, right? How is government going to finance that and still manage to hold our current debt at where it is without increasing it? That's government's position. That's the juggling government says it will do and that they intend to do without increasing our debt stock by even the peswa. Now, again, Ghana Skills and Enterprise Development Project will be introduced, part of creating the jobs that will cost money. Now, Student Entrepreneurship Initiative will also be introduced also to create jobs. Now, if you are a young person, this is definitely what you've been waiting for because it's very specific and laying out some of the interventions for you. And the president in the media budget review had a special message to young people. And I've summed it up in essence to say, I hear your pain and I will fix it. That in essence is what he sent the finance minister there to do. And this is one of the big initiatives to address the challenges that the youth face in Ghana. We also have the Youth in Community Improvement module that is going to be rolled out soon, all to create jobs. The Alternative Employment and Livelihood program under the Ministry for Natural Resources, the Lands and Natural Resources, will also be introduced. Now, according to the Deputy Finance Minister, Abenose Osari, she was very clear that 1.5 billion allocation under the Ghana Cares program will be hived up for this purpose, and partnership with the private sector will also be introduced. And then we also heard from another Deputy Finance Minister, John Kuma, who was on News File this Saturday, and he was clear that this is possible. This is possible. That we create 1 million jobs without borrowing, without increasing our debt stocks. This is possible. That is what government is planning to do. But on that same show, we had Professor Bokwe, we had Dr. Tue Champon, who said it's going to be impossible for government to do this without increasing the debt stock. So talking about the debt stock, what is it? So the Joy Research Desk pulled this up from the Bank of Ghana, just to give you a pictorial view of where we are with the debt situation. This is according to Bank of Ghana. In 2015, we were at 100. This is in billion, right? 100 billion Ghana cedis. Now, come all the way to 2021, and we are talking about 300 billion. That is a jump of 3 times the debt in the space of 6 years or so, right? So this is quite a significant jump. But let's focus on this particular government for a while. They came into power in 2017, where, according to the Bank of Ghana, the debt stock was 142 billion cedis. Now, currently, we are talking about 300 billion. I mean, if my maths is right, if you net this off to say 150, we're talking about more than close to 60 billion has been added in that period, right? According to Bank of Ghana. We'll analyze it a bit more, but then the big question becomes when you start to do the debt to GDP analysis. And again, Bank of Ghana gives us a sense of where this is, and this line graph here gives you a clear sense of where we are going. There's a steep rise, as you see in 2019. We have a steep rise in 2020. And then it sort of plateaued a bit because the change is not that significant. Government had explained this steep rise necessarily to COVID, the necessity to borrow to make you stay healthy. Government has explained is a reason why the borrowing was that steep in 2020 all the way to currently, and now it's plateauing a bit. And as you can see, the rise wasn't as steep in the previous years. But this is a very interesting challenge for government to navigate. And then we have the IMF also coming in with their own assessment of this. And the IMF says fundamentally, classify Ghana as a highly debt-distressed country, and that the Ghana therefore needs fiscal consolidation to achieve debt sustainability, although the country has a strong track record of servicing its debt. So the conversation about Ghana defaulting, IMF says takes that on the table, but of course is alerting us and warning us about the high increase in debt. So there's a lot of juggling to do, which is what we are going to be interrogating today in this debate with my guests when they join me. Stay with me. Thank you very much for joining us here on PM Express. As you can see, my guests are already seated, ready to debate the issue. Listen, there's no bigger conversation than jobs in this country, but there is a catch. How do you create 1 million jobs and still manage to stay within your means as a country? Because we're at the point IMF is warning that our fiscal space is so tight. But you've just seen all the initiatives government has rolled out to create those 1 million jobs. How do you do that without without borrowing and raising the debt levels even higher? Let's bring in my guest. Felix Kwati-Fosu is a former Deputy Information Minister, works directly in the office of the former President Felix, correct? I mean, and so I'm happy that he could join me on this conversation. Also joining me is Dr. Stephen Amwa, a member of the Finance Committee of Parliament, MP in Shaiso constituency in the Ashanti region. And thank you, gentlemen, for your time here on PM Express. Felix, let me start with you. So I'm pretty sure you follow the media budget. I mean, let's go straight to it because we'll talk about the jobs first and then we'll spin it off around the debt conversation. You heard the Finance Minister announce 1 million jobs in 3 years. First, your reaction to that?
It's not possible to discuss the job sloganeering, that's what I call it, without looking at where our finances are at the moment. You see, our two biggest problems today are a larger than needed budget deficit of 15.2% and a choking debt overhang, which is in the region of 332 billion Ghana cedis as I speak to you. Now, the reason why the deficit is a problem is that government has to borrow to finance it. And as government borrows, it increases our debt. Now, as our debt increases, it also impinges on our finances. I heard you speak about our debt to GDP ratio, which, by the way, has increased from 56% in 2016 to 78.9% according to the IMF, and is scheduled to go to around 82% by the close of this year. But you see, the debt to GDP ratio is not a very good yardstick. It only tells you whether you'll be able to pay off your debt with 1 year's economic output. You don't pay your debt with GDP. You pay with revenue, both tax and non-tax. Now, the reason why that is a problem is that as the debt has increased by over 210 billion Ghana cedis in the last 4 years, which in any event accounts for 60% of Ghana's entire debt since 1957, our debt service obligations too have increased. So if you look at the 2021 budget that this government presented, they themselves say that out of expected revenue of 72 billion Ghana cedis, 35 billion will be used to pay interest alone. Now, if you come to look at revenue, which is bigger than taxation, that is both tax and non-tax revenue, we are going to use about 55% of it to service our debt, that is interest payments and amortization. Now, when you take out public sector wages, compensation and gratuity, and statutory payments, government virtually has little else to spend on priority expenditure. So it is forced to borrow. Now, the reason why this is a problem is that it is crowding out priority spending. So government is unable to meet its debt service obligations whilst meeting domestic commitments at the same time. So if you check the 2021 budget, government says they have arrears of up to about 8.2 billion Ghana cedis, with contingent liability of over 10 billion Ghana cedis. And contingent liability simply means debts sitting on the books of SOEs, which are becoming a problem and affecting the ability to perform. So government has to step in to bail them out. Now, when you take that out, government owes contractors billions of Ghana cedis. They owe fertilizer suppliers over 780 million Ghana cedis. They owe LBCs weeks of cocoa purchases. Indeed, government is unable to meet the demands of labor. So only last week, the TUC leadership came under intense fire from its membership for accepting a poultry increase of 4% in their wages. Indeed, only today, the university lecturers embarked on a strike because government is unable to meet their wage demands.
$2,000.
So there's a huge cash crunch, which is making it impossible for government to meet its commitment, which has forced government to increase taxes, introduce about 6 to 7 tax handles, which have resulted in hardships that have led to calls for fix the country and what have you. So the economic situation is dire if you look at our debt position. Now, I made a point that it's not just your debt to GDP ratio. You need to look at revenue. To be able to be in a position where we can meet our debt service obligations and still have sufficient resources to meet domestic obligations, we need to move our tax to GDP ratio from 12% to about 18%. Now, there has been an effort also to blame just COVID, and I heard you go through the slide during your presentation, to blame COVID for where we are. You see, that cannot be true for two reasons. The debt position started deteriorating long before COVID came in. From 56% in 2016, by 2019, it had crossed 63%. So it was not like they were just 7 percentage points off the threshold of 70%. In addition to this, you see, COVID was not an epidemic. In other words, it did not just happen in Ghana. It happened globally. So you are able to see, by comparing Ghana to our peers, look at the situation in our neighboring countries and sub-Saharan Africa and compare it to ours and see whether we did anything extraordinary. So we have a list of about 22 comparators, that is 22 countries in sub-Saharan Africa who have similar economic characteristics as ours and who were also impacted by COVID. If you look at Ghana's cases, we have 836 deaths out of 104,000 cases. Cote d'Ivoire has about 330 deaths. Togo has 153 deaths. Burkina Faso has 169 deaths. Benin 108. Nigeria, because of their size, they have 1,600. But if you compare their size to ours, their population is almost 6 times our population. They have just 1,600 deaths. Rwanda has about 821 deaths, almost similar to ours. So it means that there's no humanitarian catastrophe there. What it means is that their governments did the same things that our government did to protect us. But the difference between us and them is that our government went beyond COVID relief to spend so that they could win elections. So it was election-related expenditure, not COVID relief. Now, how do you see it? Check the economic indicators of our neighboring countries who are the same problem as ours, the same implications in terms of debts and numbers. Benin has a deficit of under 5%, 4.9. Burkina Faso has 5.1. Cote d'Ivoire has 5.9. Gambia has 1.9. Guinea-Bissau has 9. Liberia has 2.8. Mali has 5.5. Niger has 5.8. We have 15.2%. So what exceptional thing did COVID impose on us to compel our government to spend this way when our neighbors who face the same problems are able to manage their economies? Look at our debt to GDP ratio. We have 78.9%. Cote d'Ivoire has 45%. Benin has 45%. Burkina Faso has 44%. Mali has 44%. Niger has 44%. Senegal has 35%, and what have you. So you look at their key indicators, and compare it to ours, and you see that ours is an outlier. And the reason is not because of COVID. The reason is election-related expenditure.
Fiscal discipline.
So there was fiscal indiscipline indeed. Only last week, when I confronted John Kuma, the Deputy Minister for Finance, on why, for instance, they are unable to pay fertilizer supplies, his answer was that they lost control of expenditure commitments. In other words, the Agric Ministry went out of its way to spend outside of their budget, which is a classic case of fiscal indiscipline and a lack of prudence.
You mentioned the IMF. The IMF disagrees with
you.
They
don't.
Because the IMF in this report, the July 19th report, I want to quote, Ghana's track record of servicing this debt to the fund, the expected recovery from the pandemic, and this is the part I want to emphasize, the commitment to fiscal discipline over the medium term, right? And the potential for Ghana's foreign exchange, it goes into but clearly, the IMF gives us a vote of confidence when it comes to fiscal discipline. This is a direct quote.
No, the IMF is a very diplomatic organization. But you see, so you need to look at the figures to see whether what the IMF is saying compares with our actual situation. Indeed, aside of the Article 4 press release or staff report, they do what they call a debt sustainability analysis, which is a DSE. If you look at page 6 of that DSE, which is paragraph 11, they say that our external debt to GDP ratio is expected to remain above threshold until 2029. Debt service to exports, debt service to revenue ratios all exceed thresholds under the baseline scenario through all the forecast horizons. So for the next 8 years, if the trajectory does not change, we are going to stagnate under this debt. So all the measures that the IMF is talking about show that they hope that the government of Ghana will be able to rein in expenditure and maintain fiscal discipline. The figures don't prove it. This year, the IMF projects that we will get a fiscal deficit of 13.9%, which is 14%, which is excessively high. In 2016, when the MPP was all over the place shouting and condemning us for mismanaging the economy, allegedly, our deficit was 6.3%.
But it didn't have a pandemic.
Well, but again, I have explained to you that it is possible to manage the pandemic and still keep your economy in check.
Just because you're comparing former NDC to current, those two comparisons had one major incident.
But even without the pandemic, in 2018, the deficit was 7%. In 2019, it was 7.5%, higher than what they came to meet when there was no pandemic. But the pandemic excuse is shattered by the fact that there are comparators, people that are just like us, who have also been hit by this pandemic, who have similar numbers, in fact, better numbers than us, which means that they even managed their pandemic experience better than we did. So for the finance minister to come to parliament and say that he's going to create 1 million jobs and go ahead to say that he will not borrow to do this is an almost impossible task to achieve.
Hold on for me. That how do you manage that? How do you manage the 1 million jobs within the context of what he's just said and what the IMF have said?
Thank you. Because of where he started from, I think we're still going to the debt issue because
it's linked.
Sorry?
It's a question of can you create 1 million?
I'm not saying he's wrong, but I'm saying that where he's taking it from, then definitely you have to use that premises to let him understand that probably it's politics he wants to do. Evans, my regards to our viewers this evening. It is very interesting. In the first place, I want Phyllis to understand that in performance management models, you cannot use a neighboring country as a benchmark. You use the globe because this is a global crisis. Go and check all the models in the world. IMF predicted negative 3.3% GDP growth, and we did 0.4%, above even the expectation. But before I just go into it, check all the debt portfolios trends in our country. NDC has the worst record all times. Check.
Evidence.
This is their own work. This is what they did.
Reference it.
The year 2000, between 2000 and 2004, increase in debt portfolio was 52.53%. Between 2004...
Which source is this?
Finance Ministry. And then the NDC used. It's this, their work. You can tell if I'm not lying. Read by Arthur Forsen.
Felix.
Ranking member.
Oh, of course.
Yes, they have it. I have a lot of them.
Okay, so
I'm quoting their own figure, and you can check from Finance Ministry. Between 2004 and 2008, that increase was 23.66%. In fact, between 2008 and 2012, it jumped to 286.96%. And the NDC. Between 2012 and 2016, it went to 234.43%. Between 2016 and 2020, that they are just blowing everything out of proportion, it was 142.22%. In fact,
that's more than 100% jump.
Sorry?
That's more than 100% jump.
Yeah, but as compared to this, check, they are hitting over 200%. I'm giving the figures. I'm coming. 8 years of the NDC, they increased it from about 9.3 billion to over 120 billion. That is over 1,000%. There was no COVID. They inherited lower middle income status in terms of our economy, our economic status. So go and check. Whilst Kufuor's regime and the MPP, we did less than even 50%. I think less than 40%.
And currently?
So, no, this currently I'm giving you, if you check the trend. But let me explain this to you, whether you like it or not. Unless you want to be dishonest. A country that, a period in time, over 1 year, trade activities were so sluggish, industries were performing their benchmarks, productivity almost on hold. Even at a point in time, we're asked to not to even come out and work. Anybody that understands the mechanization or the mechanisms of GDP computation will tell you that GDP is the core function, the functions of GDP comprises productivity and labor force. There was even redundancy. Productivity was almost zero. So your GDP will not grow. You cannot generate revenue internally. It will be affected. And you know our budget outlay, in terms of, our budget revenue generation, the two main categories. One, through taxes. Two, by borrowing. We have grants and royalties. These are remarkable figures. And then you were not able to generate through taxes because of productivity on hold and the market activities being so sluggish. And this one is uncontrollable. You can't go anywhere. It's factual. You only have to rely mostly on borrowing. And if the economy had been growing, it would have grown alongside your expenditures. Practically was no, unless you don't understand these things. But then, even in these situations, that is why even the PFM Act 2016-921 Section 18 makes emphatic statement, 3 conditions, under which even our fiscal rules and our fiscal policies must be suspended upon consultation. You think the framers of the law who don't know all these things? 1, war; 2, natural disaster; 3, health epidemic. So even the law states that under these circumstances, you cannot even analyze this if we are to go by the law against other conventions. They were not having all these situations. But in terms of increase in our debt portfolios, they've done worse. And it's a fact. So you cannot compare this situation to what we are having. In any case, let me ask you, why is it that we are picking only one primary macro indicator to analyze our economy? Why?
Which is?
We have a lot of them. In fact, interest rate under NDC was almost 40%. In fact, the government rate under NDC is higher than lending rate today. It's unprecedented. Government was borrowing at 25.5%. Now you can get some little over 20%. Go and check from the banks.
But part of
I'm coming. Let me finish. 2, inflation rate was about 15.4%. Minimum wage was 8 cedis. Now inflation rate is 7.8%. Minimum wage is over 12%. Check T-bills. One of the major indications or indicative of the fact that your economy is doing or not. If it's high, they were having 22 point something per annum. Now it's around 14%.
So part of the
talking about problem, all these parameters, they are better, far better than the time there was no COVID. So what are they talking about?
So that's a comparison. But part of what you've said is an admission that
it's very interesting.
An admission that there's a challenge economically, right? But the question, I'm circling back to the originality question, which is, so in the context of what you've just said, how do you then create 1 million jobs?
Thank you.
How do you then create 1 million jobs realistically within the context of the challenges you've identified?
Thank you. Let me tell you, we are not now going to ask for a raise for money. You know, mid-year budget, one, will not touch our fiscal policy in the area of expansionary fiscal policies or even contractionary fiscal policies. We don't ask for additional money. We don't put any burden on Ghanaians because we want to mitigate the impact.
But you strengthen my question with that because so you're not getting more money, but you want to create.
Don't take it out of context. What I'm saying is that mid-year budget, we don't ask for more money.
I get it. You didn't do it. That's a fact.
That means supplementary we needed. But we had already approved 100 billion. NDCMP had approved in the House.
I'm sorry. what you got approval for was you're going to rely on 70% of that funding is going to come from private sector. 30% is from government.
Okay.
So you don't have 100 billion.
Oh, by budget, no, boss. If you do this,
It's a question.
I'm surprised. Listen,
no, it's a question.
Tell me if we set up budget, it means we have the money there.
I mean,
exactly.
No,
so
that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that.
No, but what I'm saying is that what you are saying implying
that
that
100 billion.
But what I'm saying is our budgetary allocation
I get it.
has been already approved.
Approved. I get it.
I'm coming.
But I'm saying that.
And you should understand that when you talk about budget
Yeah.
and programs, they are projections.
I get it. But
Exactly.
so that is why the question becomes relevant.
Can you let me through?
No, just for clarity. It's important.
Yeah, but
it's important.
what you are raising is wrong.
No, but let me ask
It's
the question.
totally unacceptable.
It's a question. I'm saying that immediately you're creating 1 million jobs, right? You've got approval for 100 billion. 70 billion of that is private sector, which you don't have yet.
But that's what I'm saying. You are wrong.
I'm saying
no. That's what you are wrong.
I'm saying that how do you create
budget,
in the medium term?
Let us accept the first fact.
How do you create in the medium term your one? I get it. How do you create in the medium term?
When you make
your
budget,
1 million,
your
1 million jobs.
When you set up your projections, budget, and your programs, it doesn't mean you have the money there.
No,
so
nobody has said
exactly.
that. It's just stating the facts. So back to the question, which is important.
Yeah, it is very important.
Yeah.
But what you are saying is not factual. That's what I want to correct you. Budgets and programs are projections. Though things you want to do.
I get it. I think everybody knows that. I mean, it's basic.
So don't
basic.
say which we don't have.
But it's
nobody
it's
set
a
up
fact.
a budget when he has the money there. Anyway,
we shouldn't argue about that.
Coming back
but
to
it comes back to the question.
What you should understand in the first place is that we are capitalists. Yeah. This is where sometimes problems are created between us and the Social Democrats. Surprisingly, they are Social Democrats. They are supposed to adopt contractional fiscal policies, but none of the social policies, pro-poor policies in Ghana of national character that they have implemented. So sometimes I even wonder if they really have economic policy. But I don't want to go in there. It's something to discuss another time.
Yeah.
The point I'm making is that if a government can make lending rate, which is the most important factor in economies such as this, that investors and business communities rely almost everything on, debt financing. They borrow. And it's reduced from almost 40% to 20%. Private sector is conducive enough to expand and employ people. Go and check the banking sector. It went down because of COVID. But between March and June, go and check how it's picking up. That's one. Two, government has already been creating jobs. Even in this whole problems or this whole...
How?
Of course, creating jobs because we are now expanding agriculture. Commercialization of that to attract the youth. That's one. Artisans are being helped through government flagship programs. It's going on. Go to NEI, NEP, go to Maslock, now it's NEA, go to YEA. These things are happening there, and it's a fact. Two, when we say we are creating jobs, we are not social democrats. As I said, we are empowering. Now, government is going to create special vehicle, youth bank, not bank as in setting up another new bank that other people are misconstruing it. That bank is going to be a special package or vehicle to ensure that the youth will get capital to go into entrepreneurship and set up businesses. So these things are there. It's good to ask where we are getting it from, just as you are doing now. But the fact of the matter is that these are projections. When we say we're going to do free SHS, our brother said it wasn't going to be possible.
Yeah,
but now it is possible.
So let's go to some specifics.
You understand what I'm saying?
Let's go to some specifics. In the budget that was read, the finance minister laid out the roadmap towards creating 1 million jobs. Student Entrepreneurship Initiative, Youth in Community Improvement Module, the Alternative Employment and Livelihood Programs at district interventions targeted at sectors. These will cost money.
Sure.
My question is, within the fiscal tight space you just illustrated, how do you spend this to create those
in the first
jobs?
place,
and still stay within the realistic...
But this condition we are having is getting improved.
Framework.
We are still collecting revenues. It doesn't mean maybe we will not get our target as we want, but these are government priority areas. So government raising 100 billion, I don't think it's too big for any government that is serious to concentrate on that.
Do what he says he'll do without increasing the debt stock?
Without increasing, but if government increases the debt stock, what's wrong with that? No, I'm doing what's wrong with that?
IMF says there's everything wrong with that.
No.
Let me read what I know. Let's be factual. Let's be factual.
No.
One of the reasons why I like talking to you.
You have not made me talk.
No, I have.
You have not made me talk because you're engaging me. I don't think that's how you engage Felix. Allow me to also explain myself.
You
come in, but you're doing one-on-one with me.
No, the same questions I asked.
So IMF spoke. Yeah. That doesn't mean IMF. They have authority over everything. Let me explain that. Let me explain that.
But I haven't read the IMF for the
But that's what you're saying. But what I'm saying is that let me explain this and call any professor from IMF.
You haven't heard the IMF. Our audiences need to hear.
I read IMF executive.
Remember that this show is for our audience, so let them hear it too.
But you should also let people you've invited speak a bit. At least let me learn.
When I finish, you
because
speak.
One word you come in, second word you come in. That's not true. But that's what you're doing.
Let me share what IMF said on this point you made. At the same time, this is IMF on July 19th. But at the same time,
can you read the executive board thing? You don't pick one area.
Can I have it? Let me read.
You're picking just extract. That is not fair.
Let me read
everything they said.
At the same time, the uncertainty about the course of the pandemic and the high debt vulnerabilities mean that financing needs could increase and additional official support could be needed, including from the IMF. That is, in IMF saying in essence, things like creating more jobs, financing needs, that will lead you possibly to go back to the IMF for more money.
So you are saying that could be an alternative. That's what you're saying.
That is increasing the debt.
What I'm saying is that increasing the debt stock, the situation in which we find ourselves, it was, I don't know now because I'm not internal stakeholder of finance ministry, but I know that our budgetary revenue generation has two major arms: taxes and debt. Situation in which we find ourselves, revenue, we may not meet or perform our benchmark. So we will have to inevitably or uncontrollably rely on debt. And there's nothing wrong with it when you don't have any other option. So we shouldn't create jobs. It's rather good for a long-term goal. Create the jobs today, suffer. The jobs could expand the industries. You generate revenue to stabilize the economy. That's the best mechanization of harmonizing your fiscal policy parameters. It's done everywhere in the world. You can't say that because there's a problem, you can't generate revenue. And your debt stock's going up. So you sit idle and die, you not create jobs? No. What you have to do is not to increase the burden on the people. That's one. And that's why we're not trying to take taxes from them. Two, you create jobs and make sure that for long term, there could be expansion of your industry and generate. In fact, that falls within what Dr. Baromia said that people took him out of context, that not just taxation economy, but production economy. So you can even take money, borrow money, go into areas that have strong correlation with or to your GDP, so that you expand your GDP, and the revenue will come automatically from your GDP, and that will stabilize the economy. There is no better alternative. The NDC guys have been asked several. They are saying that we should go and beg for money. Is there any economic policy called begging? So that when you go and they say they won't give you that relief, what will you do? Because the situation here, you have no other option. Your revenue is getting dwindled. I agree. You have inevitable tax to pay for. Some of them are statutory, some are discretionary. You said that because your revenue is going down, Evans, you will let people die. No, what you have to do is to now resort to areas which have strong correlation or the coefficient of variance between those areas and your GDP is such that you can expand your economy so that, of course, today you owe. But because this area is expanded, this area is job creation, then with time you start taking taxes from them. Then you stabilize the situation. That is the mechanism of it. Everybody can do whatever politics, propaganda they want to do. They cannot do anything about this. But the NDC guys, they shouldn't even talk. Because without COVID, check the way they're increasing our debt portfolios. Check the way. They have no, even they shouldn't even talk. And two, you cannot use Ghana and compare Ghana to 1, 2, 3 countries. It's not done anywhere. It's a global issue. You need to compare Ghana to the expectations of global growth. And that was negative 3.3, and Ghana did 0.4.
Let me bring in Felix. Stephen Amwa is right, isn't he? Because the IMF acknowledges that Ghana still has the capacity to take on a bit more.
Stephen is dead wrong. First of all, there's no basis to go and compare yourself with people who are far better than you, we do not possess the capacity of the developed markets.
But the worker.
Sorry. Steve, this is not right. This is not right. It's not right. Please.
No, it's not about your word. What?
No, but I will deal with it. Look.
God,
let me give you an
is
example.
wrong.
Let's talk about debt. Let's talk about
totally
debt.
wrong.
Let's talk about debt.
Yes,
Let's talk about debt. The USA, they borrowed $2.2 trillion because of COVID. It took their debt to GDP ratio to 98%. But they have a tax to GDP ratio of 25%. They use only 10% of their tax revenue to service their debt, leaving them with 90% to spend on priority spending. You take 35 billion Ghana cedis out of expected 72 billion Ghana cedis revenue to pay interest alone. More than half of your entire revenue is going to pay just for your debt servicing obligations, leaving you with less than half to meet all other expenditure commitments that you have. A situation that has compelled you to impose tax that has created difficulties for the people of Ghana. And he says that we should not do that comparison. We can only compare ourselves to our peers. And you see, it is obvious that when a pandemic strikes and there's slowdown in economic activity, growth will slump. Côte d'Ivoire faced the same problem. They grew by 2%. We grew by 0.4%. But the reason why you need to compare yourself to your peers is that it exposes the falsehood in their claim that it is COVID that has led us here. Because what did you really do about COVID? Your duty was to ensure that people do not get COVID in huge numbers and die off. It was the responsibility of every government around the world to do the same. No. So our neighbors did it. Yet, they were mindful of their finances. They did not spend out of their, limits in order to win elections. You decided that because elections were coming, your budgetary projection that you made, that you will have a deficit of 11.4%, you will exceed it and go to 15.2%. Unbudgeted expenditure, just so that you could win elections. And then...
Which expenditure exactly was used to win
elections? It was on your program here.
How can you
but what is the let me make my point. It was on your program here. It was on your program here, where the information minister told you that they had to impose the COVID tax in order to recoup the free water and free electricity, freebie that they did.
Electricity and water.
No. It meant that they did not have the money to do it. Our finances could not accommodate it. Yet they did it because elections were coming. If you check the mid-year budget, the projections did not go beyond the third quarter of 2020. But they extended it because of elections when they did not have money, only to come and impose taxes on the people of Ghana to recoup that money and lead us to a situation where people can no longer afford. Again, this myth about they performing better and that, you see, the figures expose the falsehood. It is mathematics. Once the debt figure rises, additional borrowings in terms of percentages will go down. But the impact on the public debt can never be this. Let me give you the figures. You see, President Kufuor...
According to, because the sources...
this is the Bank of Ghana. There's no dispute about it.
Okay.
President Kufuor had $5.7 billion of our debt chalked off because of EPIC. So he is not even a very good comparator. It was not the real effect of his borrowing. Again, President Atta Mills, within the space of 4 years, between 2012, 2009 and 2013, added 26 billion Ghana cedis to our public debt. President John Mahama added 84 billion Ghana cedis between 2013 and 2016. President Akufo-Addo has added 210 billion to our public debt in the space of 4 years. Almost twice what he came to meet. And yet Stephen is here telling us that it is better to add 210 billion Ghana cedis to our public debt than to add 84 billion Ghana cedis. What kind of law? Oh, please. Let me make my point.
This is far more.
But look at the quantum and the impact. Let me tell you something. Stephen, I don't think it is right. Why is it not being fair to you? Why is it not being fair to you?
Speaking before God,
why is it not being fair to you?
He speaks, you don't ask anything. You engage me like one-on-one.
Wait.
Let's do the calculation so that we know who's speaking the truth.
When you were speaking,
oh my God, this is not fair.
Allow me to moderate the show.
No, but that's not fair.
When you were speaking,
that is not fair. No, not him. I'm sorry, Felix. Forgive me.
No, but it is not right. Let me make my point.
Let's do the calculation.
But he's asking me.
Wait.
I don't need you to do calculations for me, Stephen. I don't need.
I don't need you. I was expecting to ask him that what was our performance before the COVID.
I told you that.
We're growing 7% averages.
Make a note.
Listen, when it reaches me, let me talk.
Evans,
no.
Evans, let me shatter that myth. Evans, let me shatter that myth. Let me shatter that myth. When they came to power, there was an 80% increase in oil sector growth. That is what increased our GDP. Subsequent to that, our GDP started declining up until the point where we recorded 0.4% last year. So it was oil that jacked up our GDP. Their non-oil growth was just like ours, 4.8% in 2017. But let me make the point that I was making. The reason why the debt that they've added is choking us is that whereas we spent only 28% of revenue in 2016 servicing our debt, they are spending almost 50% servicing our debt. And so it is choking our finances. That is what he does not want to accept. Again, he says that we are saying that they should go to the IMF. You see, going to the IMF is a state of being. Let me explain something to you. The IMF last year, indeed, it is in the 2021 budget. If he is unaware, I'm drawing his attention. The finance minister himself said that the IMF had a program called the Debt Service Suspension Initiative, which meant that if you assessed it, they would defer your interest payments by between 1 to 5 years. So the 35 billion that we are going to pay today, if they had accessed it, it would be deferred. They wouldn't have to pay. And they will have the money to settle their commitments so that they don't owe contractors and all the suppliers that they owe billions of Ghana cedis, which is creating difficulties for several sectors. Why? Was it not their own agric minister who pointed fingers at the finance minister as the one who is not releasing money to him, leading to the collapse of the planning for food and jobs? I was not the one who said it. But they refused to go because the deadline was in May 2020. It was extended to June 2020. But the reason why they didn't access it was that we were in an election year. And therefore, there were stringent conditionalities that will stop them from making the unnecessary election-related expenditure that they made. They didn't want to do that. When the deadline was suspended, they also did not want to go because they didn't want to say politically that he had gone to the IMF. If they had gone, we would have relief of up to 35 billion Ghana cedis this year so that they can spend on priority areas within the economy. Again, let me come to this myth about job creation. You see, I said it was sloganeering because if you look at what they call about Tampa Cares, essentially they've banded together existing programs and given it another name. Meanwhile, the finance minister did not make allocation within the budget for specific interventions that he's speaking about. They said they will create a youth bank. You see,
but the youth bank, we have to understand that the youth bank is not government bank.
Good. You see, Evans.
It's government providing.
No, they are not providing anything.
It's government providing the atmosphere.
No, what is an atmosphere?
Environment for the private banks to land on.
What is an atmosphere? Listen, what is going to happen?
Environment for banks
essentially,
to
they are saying that young people should go to banks and access loans, right? But banks are rational economic entities. They are not in the business of charity. They are not going to give you a loan if they are not sure that you'll be able to pay back. So they hedge against risk.
Yeah, but government intervention
government is not giving them any guarantee. As in that,
how do you know that?
But they should tell us in the budget. It will be in the budget.
I mean, they've explained.
Listen, let me tell you something. Listen.
In the COVID,
how much money?
Just fact.
All right, sure.
During the COVID period, government worked with the banks to give some relief, for example. You remember? And the banks complied. Let me explain.
I'm saying that where in the budget statement, in the appendix, does the minister state that he has given this much money to banks as a guarantee against borrowing by young people? In any event, there are about 2 million unemployed people in Ghana today. Is Stephen and his finance minister telling us that those people can walk into banks and access money of any significant value to make a dent in the unemployment situation that we have in this country? Go back to the budget of 2021. The minister said that he was going to allocate 19 billion Ghana cedis for COVID relief, out of which 5 billion Ghana cedis was going to support Ghanaian businesses. How many jobs did that turn out? Indeed, look at the growth rate. It's slumped. It means that economic activity is slumped. If your economy grows significantly and it is accompanied by jobs, then we are in business. But jobless growth can happen. And over the last 10 years, we've been having jobless growth. That is the reason why our unemployment bulge keeps on increasing. So the claims that Stephen is making, when set against the facts, the objective facts in the budget, simply do not jive. It is not COVID that led us here. It is reckless election-related expenditure.
I need to take a break. I need to take a break on this. When I return, we'll get Stephen to chip in. I know he's made some notes on this. I mean, he's unhappy about, but he can. I don't know when he's unhappy. He will get to address it.
You have your time.
The thing about Stephen you should know is he's not upset. He knows that he will get to address this comment.
There's no reason for
we'll take a break. We'll return shortly.
Let everybody.
Oh, you should have stayed with us when we went for the break. It was pretty heated. But listen, gentlemen, we just have a few minutes, so Mr. can go first. That's it. That's the evidence. You're a man of evidence. You're a man of evidence. I just have 2 minutes to go. So take a minute.
In the first place, Felix analysis of debt.
Remember, we have a minute to share.
No, Felix analysis of
when
debt.
I stop, you don't say.
Can I talk?
I'm just telling you so that we set the tone. Let's go.
Felix analysis of debt servicing in Ghana is totally wrong. It's false. One, it's cumulative. So the fact that 1 year was 1 billion, 2 years 3 billion, and going up, definitely you have bigger obligation. Two, we have maturity dates. So a time may come that most of your debt or larger part of your debt portfolio has not reached its maturity date, so you don't have obligation to service. This is a fact. Go and check. And two, before the COVID, we were growing at an average rate of 7%. So how could anybody say that it wasn't about the COVID? It is even interesting. And talking about deficit.
You're growing at 7%.
In fact, yes, averagely. 2012, without the COVID, IDF's deficit was 12.1%. 12.1%. So if we want to go into these areas, they have performed far worse, even in spite of the fact that we have problems with COVID. And what I'm trying to say is that nobody has any other alternative the way we should generate funds when there is a global problem that it is uncontrollable. And even with this situation, you compare at all times. And look, it's not only just economic figures, translation of the economy into other areas. They are social democrats. NHIS, did they implement it? Unless they want to lie. Even FQ, that was in the constitution, 1992, that the time that we actually commenced the whole constitution. 8 years of the NDC, they couldn't implement. It took Kufuor's government to implement. Almost all the pro-poor police in kind and cash, we as capitalists came to implement them. Anytime NDC is leaving government power, they leave economy below 4%. In the year 2000, 3.7. 2016, 3.4. They cannot manage. Simple. Okay. And most of these things, they don't understand.
Okay, so
they are all figures. Even pie chart that they've drawn is wrong. How can you use different data points to draw a pie chart? Common pie chart, NDC cannot draw.
Okay.
Common pie chart.
Thank you, Stephen.
Take it to any professor and check. They cannot even draw pie chart. How can you compare yourself to MPP?
Let me dismiss that.
In fact, NDC would have made about 1.2 million people die in our country here. Because they don't have proven record.
Doc, it's time to wrap up.
Let me dismiss this arrogant posture.
Now you're talking about arrogance.
Oh, let me make my point.
But how can you say I'm arrogant?
Why are you so uncouth? Why you tell me I cannot draw a pie chart? But why? Who says it's wrong? It is not wrong.
It is wrong.
Who made him an authority? Who made him an authority on pie charts? Who made him an authority on pie charts?
You don't.
He simply doesn't have the basics of debate. That's all.
You don't say American.
You cannot.
Can we do the
what is wrong?
That is people.
So let me make my point.
How can you give that?
Evans, if you take a pie chart,
you don't really care about pie chart.
You shouldn't say I'm arrogant.
That is wrong. Evans, what I consider nothing. The point I'm making is that when you are speaking, you let me speak.
Me and you, who is arrogant?
Listen, when you are speaking, I keep quiet. When it's my turn, you keep quiet and listen.
But you don't say I'm arrogant.
Listen, I'm dismissing his claim. Listen, I'm dismissing.
He has a minute.
I'm dismissing his claim.
Let's push this.
But you won't even let me speak. How do I put it? What is wrong? It's not wrong. It's a lie. You tell me that it's a lie. You know how to manage the economy. The economy has collapsed in your hands. So you are now attributing. Has it not collapsed? When you go at 0.5,
one parameter.
What parameter did you use? What parameter? They are 18. You are hopelessly incompetent. You are hopeless. You are not only incompetent. You are hopeless. That's all.
The facts are here.
You see, I'm saying that I will dismiss. You see, I will dismiss the irrelevant commentary that he's making. The point I'm making is that the most pressing problem we have are the deficits and the debt that they have racked up. The debt has gone up because of their reckless borrowing. It is not because of anything that they inherited. They have added more to the debt that they inherited. And it does not make sense to sit here and claim that the obligations arising now are due to different maturity dates. Your debt has contributed to it. If indeed you had kept the debt at the levels you met or increased it slightly, you will not be paying this much. We also inherited obligations from Kufuor. Look,
I have 30 seconds to wrap up. Let him
you are taking that thing by 210. You are talking about 1,000.
I'm speaking the truth.
Is it not true that you've increased it by 210? Is that a lie?
Okay, gentlemen,
210.
I need to end the show. Thank you all for watching. Enjoy the rest of the evening.
Let's do the figures.